Are present. First item on the agenda is the Open Meetings Act. The Open Meetings Act is posted on the west wall and is accessible to members of the public during any course of this meeting. Next item, it's my pleasure to issue a proclamation. Whereas libraries create potential and possibilities within their communities, campuses, and schools, and whereas city libraries level the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies, and whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve in how they provide for the needs of every member of their communities, and whereas libraries and librarians open up a world of possibilities through innovative STEAM programming, market spaces, job-seeking resources, and power of reading. And whereas librarians are trained professionals providing technology, training, and access to downloadable content like ebooks. And whereas libraries support democracy and effect social change through their commitment to provide equitable access to information for all library users. And whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now, therefore, I stand worth, Mayor of the City of Beatrice, to hereby recognize April as Library Appreciation Month and April 12th through the 18th, 2015, as National Library Week. Further, I encourage all residents to visit the library during this time and to take advantage of the wonderful resources available at your local library. Unlimited possibilities are at your library. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a presentation? Lorene?
How could I resist with an introduction like that? You'll be glad to know I actually left a few of the lines out. The proclamation is actually longer. I'm Lorene Riedesel. I'm the director of the Beatrice Public Library. And in front of you, you should have a list of the activities that we're doing this month in honor of Library Appreciation Month and National Library Week. We have our usual craft program that is happening on the 9th. We're coordinating with SCC, and that's the poster that you have. They're doing a wonderful flexible exhibit that will fit any place that we have the room for it at the moment that we are putting this together. We're doing a book discussion with the Management Association, NMA. We are participating in the One Book, One Nebraska selection, which is a book written by a woman from Carleton who was involved with Vietnam during the first 7 years of that conflict developing. So she actually won a Pulitzer Prize for her writing. So we're kind of excited about that topic. Our summer reading program is kicking off on the 25th, and the fire department has graciously agreed to be our guests for that day. They worked with us last year, and it was wonderful. Sparky is a great hit at the public library, I have to tell you. We're working with Doll Lovers Club again this year and having a program that will feature the library's collection related to doll collecting. We're getting the genealogists together. These people are our potential volunteers in the lower levels, so we certainly want them to be aware of what we're doing. Our Seed Library is the sponsor of a special program. In addition to Library Month, this is also Garden Month, and so we're going to have a program about fruit trees. And finally, it's last but not really least, Sam & Louie's is going to do the promotion they've done again for us, and 15% of their profit is coming to the library on Monday the 27th. So if you've got a yen for pizza or some kind of Italian food, please put that on your calendar. Now you'll see something at the very end. That is the library book sale. Normally it falls during this month. We ran out of space, so we're carrying that over into May. Right now, we are still selling our books at the bargain price of 25 cents each. So come and help us clear out some of the shelves so we won't have to carry as much down to the lower level when we move. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I just want to invite any and all of you to come and participate in these events.
Any questions of Lorene? Thank you, Lorene.
Thank you.
Pick this up.
I'll put this up where everyone can see it right at the front desk. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorene. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is an agenda that's considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes of regular meeting on March 16th, 2015 as on file in the city clerk's office. Item E, approval of minutes of work session on March 23rd, 2015 as on file in the city clerk's office. Item F, approval of treasurer's report of claims. F1, approval of claims to Beatrice Humane Society in the amount of $5,000. F2, approval of claims to Gauge Area Growth, Engage, in the amount of $20,926.72. F3, approval of balance of treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $80,032.97. Item G, approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $40,106.89. Item H, resolution appointing Linda Cook as Finance Director and Deputy Treasurer. Item I, resolution appointing Aaron Sadoff as the City Clerk and Linda Cook as Deputy City Clerk. Item J, resolution authorizing signatories on behalf of the city. Item K, resolution amending the 2013 Stormwater Grant intergovernmental agreement with the state of Nebraska to extend the final date to December 31st, 2015. Item L, resolution entering into an agreement with Snyder and Associates for preliminary engineering services for the 2nd Street Court to Ella Street project, ENH-61056. Item M, approval of contract with Goosen Construction in the amount of $47,348 for the Lake Ridge Estates Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project, number 15-004, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item N, resolution authorizing the city to apply for grant assistance from the Kiewit Foundation for the installation of new playground equipment at the Scott Street ball fields. And item O, approval of special designated license for Main Street Beatrice for a beer garden in the parking lot at 120 North 6th Street on June 20th, 2015 from 10 a.m. until 12 a.m. for the annual Rib Fest fundraiser, and permission to use a portion of the city right-of-way along the sidewalk of said parking lot. Are there any items that any councilman would like removed from the consent agenda? Ted?
Two, item H and item I.
Okay, anyone else? Rick?
I will abstain from O.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone from the public wants something removed from the consent agenda? Mr. Catlin?
Mayor, I move that all the items listed under the consent agenda, with the exception of items H and I, be approved, accepted, and or ratified as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr. Your vote, please.
I believe before we vote, I believe that we need Councilman Cook to abstain from F1 and Councilman Morgan to abstain from F2. You don't have to, if you just state that on the record, we'll make note of that in the file. And
I'm not on their board anymore.
you're not anymore?
Nope.
Okay.
Is Sue?
Yes.
That's your disqualification.
Right.
Oh, okay. I'll abstain.
So if you would note, we'll note those two abstentions and.
Good, thanks. Now your vote? Okay, and that has been approved 8-0. Okay, Ted, item H.
Actually, you can handle both of these as one item. I have the same concern about both of them, and so I'll just address them at the same time.
Excuse me, Ted, just for a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We actually need to put a motion on the floor. Beg your pardon.
I thought he had, I'm sorry.
No.
Mayor, I move that resolution appointing Linda Cook as the finance director and deputy treasurer be approved, accepted, and or ratified as presented.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Morgan. Discussion? Your vote, please.
No.
Now
Discussion.
I'm going to chime in.
I'm going to move this along. There's a game on tonight.
And actually, I'll just state my issue with it, and I'll do it for both item H and I at the same time. I'm going to vote against this simply because I think that we should have put both of these jobs up for an application process or a bid process, is where we discussed over and over about our bid process. We formed a committee because we thought we were just passing things through too quickly. You guys just, gave us 8 pages on how we should propose bids and how this should be done and transparency. And then we have an opportunity here to take applications for jobs that we've created, and we're not doing that. We're just hiring from within. My problem with it is that I don't have a problem with the people that you're appointing. I think that both of them will do a fine job. I've worked with them for a long time, in many different times, and I think they're both qualified people for the job. But we're never going to know if there was somebody else out there that was more qualified, because we simply didn't take applications for it. I had this conversation with Mayor Worth today, and I understand where he's at with it, and but I don't think it's the right way to handle it, and so I wanted to pull it off and vote against it, and I wish both of these people the best of luck, and I'm sure they're doing a great job for the city. I just think that we should have taken applications for the positions.
Rich?
I'm not going to say I disagree with Ted, but we did run into a couple of factors here. I, for one, have always been a proponent of promoting from within. Second of all, I think the council has, over the years, done this and done it effectively. And third of all, we had a timeline here. We didn't get much notice from the lady that had retired. And I, for one, don't like to be without a financial advisor or a city clerk or a deputy city clerk for long. And I'm going to vote for this just to, because like Ted said, I think the ladies that we're bringing in are exceptional ladies.
Any other comments? Anyone from the audience? And we need to handle these separately, Ted. We can't just
That's fine.
do one at a time.
I'm just not going to discuss it again. I'm just giving them.
Understand.
Okay.
I agree with Rich. I think continuity and consistency is really important, and I am a big proponent of promoting within. So I would hope, gentlemen, that you would unanimously approve the appointments. Mr. Catlin, we have a motion on the floor. Your vote, please. And that is approved 7-1 with Mr. Fairbanks voting against. Itemize the next item.
Mayor, I move the resolution, resolution appointing Aaron Sadoff as the city clerk and Linda Cook as deputy city clerk be accepted, approved, and ratified as presented.
Is there a second? Moved by Catlin, seconded by Morgan, to approve Aaron Sadoff as the city clerk and Linda Cook as deputy clerk. Discussion. Yes, sir.
My question would be, is payroll, is any person here getting 2 checks, or is this one position as a deputy clerk? Is that a additional?
No, it's no additional pay. Erin has served as the deputy city clerk for, I think, about the last 2 years or so. That's the title she has served. It's more or less to have a backup in case you need something signed or documented, or if one of them's not available to come to a meeting, the other one's here, can take minutes and do those types of things. So unfortunately, there's no double pay for them.
Rich?
There will be some wage
Adjustments.
adjustments.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, your vote, please. And that is approved 7-1 with Mr. Fairbanks voting in opposition. Next item on the agenda is public hearing to amend Section 703 of the zoning ordinance to relax setback adjustments on street side yards for corner lots.
Let Mr. Butcher handle
All right. The city was approached a number of months ago, prior to the end of the building season, by a couple of property owners that owned corner lots, and they were looking to expand, whether it be attached garages or actually portions of their buildings, residential buildings, to add more space for a kitchen or a bedroom. And they were reading through, and we were analyzing our zoning ordinances in regards to the setbacks, specifically to corner lots. And we found that we do allow in a front yard what we like to deem historical setbacks. That's what we call them traditionally. And what you do is you look at the other houses that are on the block face. If you're on a corner and you're faced the other way, you may not have a specific one that's facing the same direction as you, so we jump to the next block. But we look at the houses on the block face and we try to shore you up with other houses so that you're not set back 50 feet while everybody else is 15 feet back from the right-of-way. And so what we've found is we have a number of street people that want to build into the side yard of their lot that also borders a street, but based on the way that we had written the original historical setback, it only applied to front yards. And so after analyzing it and looking at it, the city administration made the recommendation that we would apply the same rule to a street side yard with the same measurements as we had before for front yards. So what you have here before you is basically an adjustment that just notes, essentially, we cleaned up some other language, that the historical setback adjustment will now apply to street side yards as well as front yards. This proposal was brought forth to the Planning and Zoning Commission number of meetings back, and they did approve it with one amendment, which we've actually included, and they've noted that this application does not apply to accessory buildings. It only applies to a principal use building. So we've included that as well.
Questions?
Principal use building, attached building, any difference there?
No, if your principal residence has an attached garage to it, that's considered all the principal building, the primary use. Now, if you had a detached garage, that would be considered technically an accessory building. You would not be able to use the historical setbacks when you place that building.
Anybody else? Anyone from the public? Accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I move that the public hearing be closed at 7:16 p.m.
Second, Claybaugh?
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Claybaugh. The public hearing be closed. Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Okay. Next item is a resolution entering into an exclusive contingent development agreement with Bluestem Energy Solutions LLC regarding renewable energy development.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5760 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Catlin, seconded by Cook. Resolution number 5760 be passed and adopted. Discussion with us today is Adam Herink. And Adam, if you want to address the council and discuss what kind of what you gave presentation to the Board of Public Works.
Sure. First, I'd like to thank the council, Mayor Tobias, for the opportunity tonight. We see this as a tremendous opportunity for your community. I know you guys have a bit busy agenda. There's a game on tonight, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking.
Take your time.
But I would like, to introduce our company and our business model, and then if there's any questions, I'd like to field those questions. So I will go through these slides fairly quickly. If you have a question during this, just please raise your hand and we can talk about it. Who is Bluestem? Bluestem is a Nebraska-based company. Bluestem was created in 2008. We were created out of a 90-year-old Nebraska-based construction company called Boyd Jones. Boyd Jones was getting into the construction of the renewable energy technologies, and we saw more of an opportunity locally to develop, own, and operate these projects. Bluestem was created in 2008 to act as a developer, owner, and operator. The counties in the blue on the map are areas that we have projects currently in the state, either operational, under development, or under construction. We were the first Nebraska-based company to execute a Nebraska wind power purchase agreement with the Nebraska Public Power District. We were also the first Nebraska-based company to work with a community like Beatrice on what's called your 2-megawatt exemption, and what we're talking about tonight. Our model is what I call distributed generation. and that's generating electricity at the point of consumption. So currently, we have a robust transmission system with central plants located, all through the country. We're generating large amounts of power and shipping it through the transmission lines. What we're talking about today is generating a portion of your power locally through a renewable technology, and you're using that energy as it is generated. Again, connected to the customer's electric system, and electric generation equals economic activity. I throw that in because we're kind of going back to what we used to do in this country when we started generating electricity. And what some of our customers are finding is the economic development opportunities that go with generating electricity locally, whether that be jobs, lower electric rates, energy independence, different things like that. Our company takes a value-focused approach. When we develop our projects for our companies, our main focus is on the economics. I don't expect our customers to make any decisions unless they feel this is a good economic decision for them, ultimately that they're going to save money for their ratepayers. The final three bullets on there I cross out on purpose, not that they're not important to us or maybe somebody in your community, it's just not what gets up and drives us. We're not concerned about climate change. That's not why we're looking at these projects. We don't necessarily have a political agenda. We're going to be focused on the economics of these projects. The financial benefits to renewable energy is such, we have a free fuel source. Our projects do not have a fuel cost. Because we do not have a fuel cost, we are able to lock into our prices for up to 25 years. That's the financial opportunity with renewable. Now, there's technical limitations to it. Unfortunately, we can't power the city of Beatrice all through the wind and the sun because we can't control it. So there are limits that we can hit in size to be technically responsible. But what ends up happening in our projects is we'll look at a percentage of your electric purchases and we'll want to lock into those rates. That could be 4%, 5%, 10%. That's where the financial opportunity is. So if there's wind generators outside of town and they're operating, Beatrice is using that energy first, and then it's firming it up through your wholesale supplier. So what is the highest percentage? A lot of our customers are saying, how high can we go and still provide reliable power? That's the magic goal we're looking for. Blue Stem's a little different in the fact, right now in the renewable energy industry, there's a lot of developers going around, and that's not a bad business model per se, but when we got into this, we had the infrastructure to own and operate these projects for the long term. These are long-term contracts. This heavy infrastructure, they're big machines. We have the infrastructure and the setup to manage these projects for 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. So that's what makes us a little different. Sometimes on the development end, you have people developing projects to get them developed and then maybe sell them to a third party. We develop, own, and operate. So what has changed? 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't sit here and say, I think this is the best opportunity for the city of Beatrice. But the economics in this industry have changed. The price of wholesale energy has went up dramatically, and the cost of renewables has dropped dramatically. So all of a sudden, in the last few years, there's an economic opportunity for these types of projects, and then for them to save money for communities on the get-go. Again, renewables as a financial hedge. This is going back to, on these projects, you see your price on day one, and you see your price on year 25 or however long the contract is. That's the opportunity. There are very few things in life that we can lock into prices for up to 25 years. The only one that I can come up with is a residential, federally backed mortgage. The opportunity to lock into prices for the long term, is where it comes into play. And so what does this look like for our customers? It looks something like this. So this is a graph of a current peer community in Nebraska, not quite as big as Beatrice, but this is what they're looking at. When their project gets up and running, depending on what happens to their wholesale rates, the savings get greater and greater for their community because of their ability to lock into the price of that project. Again, there's a certain size that we can only get to because we still want to offer reliable power, but this is where the financial opportunity comes into play. Where wholesale rates going? I could talk about this for a long time. Obviously, I can't guarantee anything, but the utility industry is under extreme changes at this point. We have technological disruption on the renewable energy side. There's federal regulations coming down for coal and nuclear. There's a natural gas revolution happening. All this stuff is happening at the macro level all over the country that communities like Beatrice really can't control, which means it might even be more valuable to a community like Beatrice to generate some of your power locally. And these are just some of the risks that we see out there regarding, wholesale power. Additional benefits. There's no upfront cost to the community. You take on no debt for these projects. Again, new economic activity from local generation. These projects do pay property taxes. The local businesses will benefit from the economic activity. We have a project in Kippahaw County right now, one of the poorest counties in the state. We're sending crews of people up there from Omaha and Lincoln on a monthly basis. They opened their gas station back up. There's a lot of good stuff that happens that comes from this. We're working with the local electricians up there. Their businesses have increased. IT folks we've contracted with up there. So there's a lot of local businesses that we will be contracting with for the life of these projects that retain some of those dollars in your community. Additional sales tax revenue, and then educational opportunities for local schools. So I went through that fairly fast. So if I'd be happy to field any questions, concerns, comments. What is before you tonight is a development contract. I cannot sit here right now and tell you what is the best technology or size for the city of Beatrice because we don't know that yet. We go through a series of development activities to look at where are the resources in this part of the state, what are some of your technical limitations, and put together different projects. We come back to you at the end of that period with prices. If you don't like those prices, then you have a way to say, hey, we do not want to take part in this long-term project. Obviously, I don't think that'll be the case. We'll present these prices to you, the long-term economic effects, and at that point is when you would enter into the long-term commitments for these projects. After those contracts would get signed, then we would go ahead with construction and operation.
Timeline, Adam, from the start, prior to construction would be approximately?
Best case scenario, we may be back here with pricing anywhere from 6 to 9 months, could take up to a year. We have to do certain resource studies, study the wind, study the sun, different things like that. Once we get to that point, it'll move fairly quickly. Then we're just ordering materials, equipment, different things like that. We could have a project up and going 1.5 2 years at the most, probably.
Rich?
I'm a little thick. I read through this and I got even thicker. And I just asked Toby. So what you're saying is you guys come in, you own the equipment, you put up the equipment, you repair the equipment. We don't have a dime to put into it. The only thing we put in is that we buy the electricity from you to supplement our other ones.
Yes. A commitment to purchase the electricity is what
For 25 years.
Exactly. That's what's on our side of the contract.
How many generators are you going to put up? How many windmills are you going to put up? A couple, 2, 3?
Probably. That's probably the size we're looking at. And it's just not wind. We will be looking at some solar play. I know there's a landfill outside of town. Renewable energy is the focus because that's what your current contract allows. We can't just come in here and build a base load natural gas or something like that. So we need to stick to the renewable side of the technologies. But we will be looking at all those to make sure that you have an understanding of this is our best resource, this is the best fit for our community.
Don't take this personal. I'm not going to ask you the question. I'm going to ask Toby and the mayor. Is our wholesale electric, are they on board with this? That's the reason I'm asking you is because
It's allowed in the current. Doing such a project is allowed in our current contract. It'll be included in whatever new contract you sign with MPPD. The same provisions in there. So, yes, in fact, MPPD looked over the RFQ before we sent it out. I've been in contact with them a number of times. This is nothing new that other communities haven't done. So,
and we've done this same project with the same contract with some of your peers. So, and we wouldn't be able to sign a contract with you unless your contract allowed it.
And our limitation is 2 megawatts?
Currently, it's 2 megawatts or 3% of your peak. And I know, we don't get into this side of things, but I know there's discussions of raising that limit. Your timing's pretty good. We'll look at what, if we took away all the contracts, technically, what would be the best project for Beatrice? And then we'll have to resize it based on whenever you negotiate your new contract for.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
This exclusive contingency on this here, if we decide to pass this tonight, and we come back in 9 months with their contract where it's actually showing us the cost and we don't like it, can we get out of it this time, or do we have to stay with them for a duration of it?
You can either write out the contract for the duration, or there's basically a way to buy yourself out, I believe, for $25,000. We pay them for the research they've done. They go their way, we go ours.
That's up to 25,000.
We cap it. And we'll be spending more than that. We just feel that we should have some skin in the game too.
Ted?
I've got my stumbling block of this is the exclusive contract,
Sure.
so I want you to explain to me
Yep.
why you have that. And then I have two other questions for you. So my stumbling block is the exclusive contract.
Yep.
Why should we enter into an exclusive contract with you? Obviously, there's other companies out there that do the same thing that you do, and we're entering into a contract that lasts for 25 years. So help me with that.
And tonight's not the 25-year contract.
I get that.
Okay, so you're not making that decision tonight.
I get
so, our company has some larger wind developments in Nebraska. We have a 100-megawatt project in Greeley, Nebraska. I have no exclusivity on that project, okay? Now, when we are marketing that project, I have potential customers in Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Texas, Iowa, maybe Chicago, because of the transmission system. When we come to Beatrice and develop this project, I have one potential customer. I can't develop a 3-turbine project and expect to sell that anywhere else because we can't put it on the system and wheel power of that size. It just doesn't work. So we're developing this project for you. We are a financially responsible firm, and we just don't do that on the come. You know what I mean? We just can't do that because it's capped at $25,000. We will put a ton of resources, manpower, and money behind this, and we're developing for you. Now, I don't expect you to just say, all right, develop this, and then maybe come back and I don't like the price. So there is an out for you because I think that's fair. But we need the commitment from the community before we will develop and let our resources go to work, because it is a lot of work and it takes time.
Right. Okay. Well, you answered one of my questions because I was wondering about any additional that we didn't use, where it went or what happens, and you explained that. So, but I guess so. My last question is, you're just a holding company for this, or you're a design and development company. So do you have specific companies that you work with that build the turbines? I look at the state of Iowa.
Sure.
My oldest son and his wife live there, and then obviously those are not all owned by the same company.
Sure.
So help me with that, how you integrate that, as opposed to, do you deal just with one company? Do you have multiple companies in these different areas? Or is it all?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
We do not manufacture any technology.
Correct.
We're a developer. We understand how to develop the project. So that's the first bucket of our expertise. We have the financial ability to bond and own and finance these projects, which is important. So that's where the 90-year-old history of our company comes into play. After that, we will be working with the city to look at every possible technology out there. Now, we're going to have a say in it because we have to own it, but we want to find the best technology for the best price for the city of Beatrice, and that's our job as a developer. Right now, for our projects, we do own some German turbines up in Springview, Nebraska. We probably wouldn't go with that company again. Right now, we're purchasing General Electric machines on the wind side of things. When you get into the solar side of things, there's a plethora of companies that we would look at. And if there's local reasons or strategic reasons to look at something else, we would like all that information, put that in part of the plan. Our job is to package it, make sure it's a responsible decision for everybody involved, including us, and then see if we want to move forward at that time.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
the resource itself, right now we're limited, we have a percentage limited, and you mentioned or alluded to that you think that changes somewhere down the road, that the power industry, the utility we contract with presently, you think that number gets larger. And not, obviously you can't answer that, or you can't. I'm not asking you to give me a firm answer on that, but can you explain to me why you think that occurs and how much bigger you think that percentage gets?
Sure. What we see is everybody in the industry at your level, and when I say that, that's the municipal and rural electric level, is there's a growing demand for this based on the economics.
Right.
So we see these contracts morphing into a larger percentage of local generation. Okay, so we're seeing that happening at all levels, and I think Tobias could speak to that too. How much can we do? I am very cognitive of reliable power. So to me, it's all technical. There is a technical limit for the city of Beatrice to do. There's a size there that's responsible for two reasons. One, just to keep the lights on, and two, you don't want to get in a situation where you have excess energy that we have nothing to do with. And we're not going to put you in that situation. And so is it 5, 10, 15%? That's probably kind of the range there, A lot of it depends on 24/7 industry. Larger users that 24/7. I think Beatrice has some of that. That's going to allow you to do more. If we're looking at a community that's just mostly residences, there's periods where their energy drops off dramatically, and we don't want to be in a situation where we're selling the city power and they don't need it. So, I think it's probably somewhere in that 5 to 15% range. As your peak grows, if you that's the other thing some of our customers are doing is they're going to market this as a green, something or other for industries to come into town. Some of your data centers and different things like that value this. Then you would be able to do more, down the road. And we will have we'll make that part of our plan when we present that, back to the community.
Phil, do you have a question?
Okay, you done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Historically, what does a kilowatt cost for renewable energy? My dumb phone wouldn't let me find that today.
Sure. I mean, at the wholesale level, retail level.
Wholesale level?
There's PPAs in Nebraska anywhere from, $30 a megawatt to $70 a megawatt. And so that's, take it down to the kilowatt range.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we're talking 2 or 3 turbines. If I've talked with Gary about this before. If we find this is a good deal, that you find, except for Gary blowing a lot of hot air back there, turbines, why wouldn't we make this a larger plant? If it also
limitations.
If I may, the reason that you can't right now is because the contract you have with MPPD only allows you to go up to 2 megawatts or 3%.
Right.
The contract we're negotiating right now has a 4 megawatt or 10% limit in it. If you want to do more than that, you'd have to amend or have a different contract with MPPD.
It's more like, why wouldn't they build it larger? If they found the hill that was just perfect and they found that they could generate way more than what we could ever use, would you then look, you're right, would you look to sell it back and make it larger? I had a customer friend say, well, geez, what if they really decide they find a good spot and want to put 50 of them on there, and now we're going to look at these 50 turbines outside of town? Are we going to like that?
Yeah, I promise you we're not going to do that. Now, there's a couple reasons why. When you get into putting power up onto the transmission system, you get into a whole different game. And the economics change, the risks change. You're just, and nobody's really doing that at this point, without a buyer. So, this is our model to develop a project for Beatrice, and there's technical limitations, and then there's, contractual limitations. And when we come back to you with our project, if I come back and say, well, it's a 50 megawatt project, you could say, well, we don't want to do that. So there will be another time where you can look at the size of this and say, hey, we're not going to do that.
Okay. Rich, I think you have a question?
Well, just a comment. We've been looking at doing this. When John Bartles was here 20 years ago, one of the stumbling blocks was we were going to put them up ourselves, and it was $1 million per turbine. And I think we should go ahead and at least look into this a little further. I just asked Toby, there could be a considerable savings down the line to our ratepayers, and that's going to make them all happy. And I honestly think we should go ahead and look at this thing. And Gary, your knees are going up and down. Are you getting excited?
Anybody else on the council have a question?
Tobias has been working on
Dwight?
contracts. Do you see anything in the near future where if we start going like this, and so does 10 other communities near here, that our original providers are going to say, hey, we're losing money, let's jack it up a little bit more just for that reason?
When you say jack it up, I'm assuming you mean the rates?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
It's always a possibility. I mean, MPD always talks about their revenue requirements, and obviously the fewer units they're selling, the more they got to sell those units for to meet their revenue requirements. In the overall scheme of MPPD, the size that we're talking about is a blip on the map to them. And I don't think that they would even notice our small renewable project that we'd have out there.
Greg?
And Tobias, for the point of clarification, there is in the current contract, there is a limit on the entire wholesale of MPPD for renewables into these sort of projects, correct?
The current contract, there is not. The proposed contracts that we're working on with MPPD, there is an aggregate limit for all of the wholesale customers can reach.
So if other communities were to develop this faster than we would, MPPD hits that aggregate limit, then we're shut out under the contract. Is that correct?
We could put it up. We don't get the great economic benefits from doing it. We would end up with just the I don't know if the term escapes me, but we would not have. It would not be as economically viable as it is currently.
Okay. Any other discussion from the council? Rick?
Tobias, you did interview another couple companies, didn't you?
We
The big difference was the upfront cost.
Right. We sent out RFQs. We mailed it out to 8 different companies. 3 of them returned proposals to us, and of all of them, Bluestem was the only one who met our requirements or our desires to have them be the one who own, operate, and manage the system. Most of the other ones wanted us to own it, or us to operate it, or own it after 20 years, or do something along those lines.
Bob?
Yeah, I think it's worth that investigation. I mean, we're looking at a walk away at $25,000, but we're also looking at a huge opportunity where we can bring some savings. So I think it's one of those things you have to at least look at, particularly the way renewables are out there.
Any other comments from the council? Anybody from the audience? Gary? Gary Thompson, NPPD representative.
Thank you very much. I did come here because I knew this was on the agenda, and I wanted to be sure that I got here and said, I have had a good deal of experience with Adam and with John Crane at Bluestem. They have, 10, 12 years that we have been working on various things. I know Bluestem. It's an excellent, excellent company. I think it was mentioned, Mr. Mayor, I think you mentioned that Bluestem had a contract with NPPD, and that is true. They have the Springview project, the Bluestem project, which is a direct drive, 2 turbines there in Springview, and we've had an excellent working relationship with Bluestem for a long time. I personally, as a resident of the city of Beatrice, I just would really urge you to take a good look at this, because I think it's an opportunity for Beatrice. Certainly we want to move forward on renewable energy as much as we can. I think, you look down the road and what are some of the limitations, that type of thing. I think to get it going on this thing is really something that would work well. And I assume, I haven't talked to Adam about this, but I assume you'd be talking about a PPA.
Yep.
With the set rates on it, with escalation clauses in it, which is typical of what we do as far as NPPD is concerned. So you're going to have a set rate for 10, 15, 20 years, whatever that contract might be. And I think that's well. There's no question that our rates, NPPD, are going to continue to go up, and everything does go up. But this is something that I think you can get into an excellent fixed rate on, that you'll know what's going to be happening over the next period of the contract. And so I just simply wanted to say, I have worked with Adam and with Blue Stem, with John Crane. I think they're a wonderful company, and you can't go wrong, in my opinion, if you were to explore this possibility with Blue Stem.
Okay, Gary, thank you.
Would you be willing to put in some of that 25,000 if we don't work out?
I'm not authorized to do that, Rich, but
Anyone else from the audience? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to enter into an agreement with Blue Stem Energy Solutions, LLC. Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for coming.
We look forward to working with you.
Forward to working with you. Next item on the agenda is a resolution entering into an interlocal agreement for the purpose of the Nebraska Mutual Finance Assistance Act. Tobias?
Mayor,
I'm
I
sorry.
move that resolution number 5761 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Bilsbach. Resolution 5761 be passed and adopted. Now discussion.
Just the real cliff notes for some of you. You've heard this for a long time. Some of you, this will be a new one. Back in 1998, the Nebraska unicameral put up the Mutual Finance Assistance Act, and with that, it's for basically fire departments to create mutual finance organizations, and Gage County created one of those back in 2000 or 99, somewhere in there. And basically, it's a formula with the state treasurer's office, where it's a combination of evaluations with population, and then some crazy mathematical thing that I don't quite understand. That we send in with an application, and then the state treasurer's office, through this process, all of us that have mortgage insurance, fire insurance, there's a portion of that the state then takes out. It's a tax, basically, with our insurance. And then with that formula, with all the others in the state of Nebraska, then they figure out how much money they have and divvy it up between the organizations. And it's a lot of protective clothing, fire hydrants, vehicles, communications equipment, some facility upkeep, and items like that then go back into the departments. And our share of it's about 80,000 that we get every year. So. And
according to this grant, or this Assistance Act, there's a consortium of villages and communities that are involved in this, according to
every fire department in Gage County.
In Gage County.
This is just a renewal of what
Yeah, same thing we've been doing forever. Yep.
Is it the same percentages as this?
Yeah, there is a move to it got reduced a few years ago. There's been a move this year in the unicameral to try to increase it, and that's still up in the air yet. So.
Yeah, I looked at that LB the other day. So it's worked for us in the past, hasn't it?
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Anybody from the audience? All right. Seeing none, your vote, please. And resolution number 5761 has been passed and adopted. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance amending Section 703C of the Beatrice zoning ordinance to relax setback adjustments on street side yards for corner lots.
Mayor, I move the said ordinance be given number 15-005. The title therefore be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr, that the ordinance be given 15-005. Title thereof approved and rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight. There is no discussion if the rules are suspended. Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 15-005 by title the first time. Ordinance number Ordinance number 15-005 by number only the first, second, and third time. Is that how you want me to read that?
Yep. Yep, first time, second time, third time.
That's the first time. Ordinance number 15-005 by number the second time, and ordinance number 15-005 by number the third and final time.
Mayor, I move that ordinance number 15-005 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Claybaugh. I think he was first. That ordinance number 15-005 be passed and approved. Your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance adopting City Code Section 2-319 to 2-321, creating the position of City Finance Director and assigning duties.
Mayor, I move that said ordinance be given number 15-006. The title therefore be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook. That ordinance number 15-006 be read by title only 3 times tonight. And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Is that correct? Yes. Ordinance number 15-006 by number the first time. Ordinance number 15-006 by number the second time. And ordinance number 15-006 by number the third and final time.
Mayor, I move that ordinance number 15-006 be passed and approved.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr, that 15-006 be passed and approved.
This ordinance simply puts in your city code the position of the finance director and states that this position will be appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the city council. These provisions read very similar to those of the city clerk, city administrator, city building inspector, all the other positions that are appointed by the mayor.
Any other comments? And your vote, please. And that is passed 8-0. Ordinance number 15-006 has been passed and approved. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance adopting Article 11 of the Beatrice City Code regarding purchasing.
Mayor, I move that said ordinance be given number 15-007. The title therefore be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Party. Ordinance number 15-007 be read by title only 3 times tonight. Your vote, please. That is a pass. That passes 8-0. Ordinance number 15-007 by number the first time. Ordinance number 15-007 by number the second time. And ordinance number 15-007 by number the third and final time.
Mayor, I move that ordinance number 15-007 be passed and approved.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Billsbach, that ordinance number 15-007 be passed and approved. Discussion.
This is essentially the same ordinance that was brought to you at the work session. I think the only thing that may have changed might have been, do we change the part of 150%? Do we clarify
Yes.
that a little bit better?
Under the definitions, section 2-380, an acceptable bid, we removed the language that kind of came across as a double negative. It's confusing. So now it reads, an acceptable bid shall be a bid received by the city which is less than 150% of the estimated amount.
So that was the only change in the document from last time.
Comments? Anyone from the audience? All right, your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance amending section 9-126 and 9-130 regarding permissible fireworks and public fireworks exhibitions.
Mayor, I move the said ordinance be given number 15-008. The title therefore be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr, that ordinance number 15-008 be read by title only 3 times tonight. Your vote, please. That is passed 8-0. Ordinance number 15-008 by number the first time, ordinance number 15-008 by number the second time, and ordinance number 15-008 by number the third and final time.
Mayor, I move that ordinance number 15-008 be passed and approved.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Party, that ordinance number 15-008 be passed and approved. Discussion, please.
What this ordinance does is it clarifies the definition of fireworks in our current city code. If you see on page 106 in your packet, we had a rather lengthy definition that was a holdover from years ago. We simply clarified it and said our permissible fireworks are those that are allowed by the state, is essentially what we've changed it to. The other change you see there in section 9-130 is our current city code allows you to shoot fireworks on 4 days, January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. However, we had occasions where we've had professional displays that wanted to go on or happen on other days. Technically, in our city code, there was nothing to allow those. This would allow those types of displays to be approved by the fire chief, the police chief, and the mayor. Upon their approval, those can be shot off on another day. Now, there's technical terms for the type of fireworks that are out there. These are not going to be graduation parties. They're not going to be weddings, anything like that. You're going to have a consumer, trying to think what the exact term here is, it's valid holder of the display license. So you have to go through the state. You're going to have permission to put these on. You're going to have to be professional that puts this display on. It's not just because you feel like it's Thursday and you want to celebrate the national title game tonight that you're going to shoot some fireworks.
I probably will.
Rich?
Do you need all 3 of them, or do you just need a combination of the 3? Or
Need all 3.
you need all 3? Okay.
So are
Dwight?
Are there any fireworks at this time that the city does not allow that the state does?
Yes.
Yep.
Sparklers.
They're not allowed in the city?
They were outlawed recently.
In the city?
No, at the state level.
Okay.
Really?
All types of
Mhm.
you just wire.
There's a technical term of the different kinds of sparklers.
out of them.
There's like gold or what, I don't know
I
what
mean,
they all
really.
were. But they had a sunset clause when they passed the most recent additions to the fireworks state statutes, and they phased those out. And so I think they had a 2-year sunset, and then those are legal as well. So that's why we just said we don't have anybody out doing any specific enforcement, going out and checking on these things. But we just want to make sure the stuff that's coming into the state that's legal can be used here. And then as that morphs and changes over time, this will allow us to go with that.
Dwight?
Would this be an appropriate time to add an amendment on here to ban those floating lanterns?
I think there's legislation to do that.
It's pending, though, it's not passed yet.
Yeah.
And I would-
Trust me, the league is working hard on that because Lynn Rex was personally one of those people who had her house catch on fire as a result of one.
I would like to
And
see
so
us-
she is vehemently pushing for that ordinance or that
Well,
state
if
statute
this
to be
doesn't
pushed
Yeah,
go
if you
through.
to
know
the
Lynn.
state legislature, then could we come back and visit it again after that?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are
You
pretty.
can ban it with an ordinance.
Any other discussion regarding fireworks? Anybody from the audience? Okay, seeing none, and your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 15-008 has been passed and adopted. Next item on the agenda is the public forum. Purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council at this time. Is there anyone on the council have anything for the public forum? Anyone from the audience? Okay, next item on the agenda is the Engage Quarterly Report. Glennis McClure, Engage Director. Good evening, Glennis.
The quarterly report time again, and so I know you've had a full evening, so I'll make this as brief as possible. I believe you received a copy of the report. In the red font, I have the updated items. I wanted to bring your attention to, this as being a relatively new document. It probably looks somewhat similar, but our board recently went through a strategic plan, and so what you're seeing there in the blue is the outline of, under each objective, there's 6 objectives, and those activities underneath those objectives. And within that, then, I have provided for you an update from this last quarter. So I'm really here to answer your questions, but I think it's important to take note in the strategic plan that we're still about business retention and expansion. It's really important, of course, for us to make visits and contacts with current businesses, especially the prime employers, those that are key employers in the community. In this last quarter, I had contact or visits with 10 of those prime employers, and then also there are, of course, retail and service businesses, and there were 8 of those contacted. And right now, really kind of trying to focus with, particularly, the prime key employers, as to what their employment breakdown is, where they have folks coming from to work there, and a little bit about the wage ranges, some of their turnover. And so I'm reaching out and trying to gather up more of that data in the month of April. In particular, I think it's to help our educators, folks around us, to understand that there are opportunities in this community. And, if employers have people coming in, there could be more folks from this area taking advantage of some of those things. I think along those lines, I think it's important to, of course, stay connected with the manufacturers. So we have started a manufacturing advisory group. So it's really been a good way, again, to stay in communications, contact with them, try to understand their issues on an ongoing basis. We have just a week or so ago, we went to Grand Island and visited the Career Pathways Institute there. Fabulous facility where they're working with high school students to get them to understand some of the trades, and then of course they go as juniors and seniors the last 2 years, and then they either connect with community college programs, go on to 4 years, or they may just decide to work and be a part of the jobs in their community. So that's really been a lot of our activity this last quarter. There are, of course, we work with business attraction. The Nebraska Department of Economic Development sends out from time to time inquiries that we respond to. And so I've noted here that there were 3 full proposals sent back. We didn't hear anything real positive on those. I want to mention that there was a really good one that came last week. It was right into April. That would be a good fit for one of our facilities. And so we had 2 days to turn that around. And so that's back out to them now. And then there were just other general inquiries. And I make a note that of the inquiries were people just looking for locations. One could be a significant employer, in this community if that comes to fruition. All right. So, and then entrepreneurship, small business development. I think there's been quite a bit of activity there. In the quarter, I had made note of at least visiting or making, they were all visits with 9 new business owners. Again, working to connect them with resources, in some cases working with them in particular in doing business plans, cash flows, that kind of thing. A couple of them are pretty strong. You'll find people that are looking to buy current businesses where someone wants to retire, and so working with folks on that as well. And then I think we look for opportunities. I would like to, at least on a monthly basis, have some kind of workshop event, something that small businesses can take part in. On May 5th, we do have a speaker coming in on marketing, the fundamentals of marketing for their business. So we try to promote those things and get those out. And there's more. I'd like to really set up a schedule, of those. And so looking to work with Southeast Community College on that. And Grow Nebraska is a good partner. Also, the REAP is a good business, development partner there too. I did want to mention the ECAP process, Entrepreneurial Communities Discovery tool that we did. We've had 4 community conversation meetings now with that, and those have been evening meetings. We're continuing with those. Our next one's on April 15th. From time to time, you've probably seen some information about that, and you're all welcome and invited to attend those things. We are now to the point where we can start doing some action planning, and I did bring along a piece, and I'll share this with you, but I wanted to make note that the community ECAP characteristics that seem to come to sort of rise to the top as far as priority goes, as we worked with about 25 to 35 on average, at these meetings, citizens that are engaged in this process. But we've seen the prioritization for action planning is sense of place and doing more with that, community vision, leadership, and entrepreneurial support systems. And so you'll see here those four characteristics, again, were sort of got the top vote getters as we went through all of the survey work and then pared it down from there. And then comments underneath those, in particular, what this group of citizens would like to see. And I know Councilman Claybaugh and Morgan have been involved in that, and I really appreciate that. And all of you, of course, are invited to those meetings. And not sure how long they'll go on, but we have another one planned for the 15th of April over at the Carnegie Building. So I do want to mention that we did put out an RFP for a housing study, and we chose Hannah Keelan to help us with that. And Tobias and I are working with that together, and we have a meeting with them on Wednesday to further define our scope. We had thought that there would be a NIFA grant, and we will be applying for a NIFA grant to help pay for half of that. But that got pushed back a couple months, and so it's probably going to push our timeline a little bit back on our housing study because they'll pay for half of the housing study. So hopefully we can obtain funding to help with that too. So. I also wanted to point out to you that, again, the branding project, branding theme, we have that launch meeting tomorrow night. We're working with the Lincoln area partnership to do a regional website. That's kind of a thing in economic development now, is working together more regionally and doing some more marketing that way. So we're a part of that effort. And then also, I think is attached, you should have had some Engage evaluation measures. There's a couple sheets there. I really like your feedback on this. Our board worked together, obtaining, various measures. Part of this section actually came from, if you recall, that recertification that we did. I thought it was really pretty good information for me to research and provide information when we did that recertification. So I thought, well, hey, going forward, let's keep track of those things on a quarterly basis so it'll be easier 5 years from now when we do recertification. But and also just so information there on how many leads were generated during the quarter, responses that we've done, what I would say are open projects right now where we're waiting for responses on, and then you can see some of the other valuation measures, some information about labor, and then just some benchmarks, kind of where we were at the first of this year with valuations and so on. So they're noted, and I noted on here, and it maybe look a little confusing to you, but I noted on here where that information was obtained from, because there's various sources where you, of course, have to look for that data, and I just made notes of that on here. So any questions?
Good.
Question, comment. Question on housing study, Glennis. What do you do with it? What does your organization do with the information furnished from the housing study?
If we depending on the outcome, I've not been through one of those yet, but it is to look at, to study really what are the needs of the community, this community as well as all of Gage County, and in the various communities, and what are the needs for housing, what are the different levels of housing that are needed, and it would be connecting with potential developers to provide that information. So I say that's probably some of the key. Businesses can look at, what can they come in and do? Again, it's sort of that development work and how we can work together. And I would work really closely with the city and a lot of those results. So I haven't been through one, so we'll learn as we go on that. So
yeah. The last thing in your strategic objective number 6, I noticed that I actually applaud your organization for this. Your growth, your membership, your drive that you're actually trying to get some private funding within your end. Does your board, do your percentage that you're looking at? Are you trying to looking to someday phase us out of this?
Well,
hopefully,
you never know. I think an initial goal was that at some point in time it'd be good if we had at least 50% private funding.
I agree. I think we're to the point where we can start that ask, and we can do that. I just like to mention that, a community less than half of our size near us
raises almost half of their funding privately. And so I think that hopefully we're moving along good, and we can
I think that
happen.
there's always a place for us to be part of your funding mechanism. I think that's important that we have a hand in that. But this is the first time in a very long time that I've seen your organization like you that actually has broached this, and I applaud your board for that, or you, whoever's driving that piece of it, because I think that that's very, very important. They've got to show some ownership. So
it hasn't been launched yet, but it is in our goals to do so.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Questions?
Go ahead.
Rich or Rick?
Steve Bors, you had a meeting with him. Or are we progressing with
Right.
discussions with them?
I think they're an excellent resource, and they really want to do some things in this community. So I think it's important that we work together with Southeast Community College and work on their entrepreneurship program. So it's a matter of just following up again with him and setting some dates and some workshops. So I think we're going to start off with one that would be sort of a feasibility planning. That's what we talked about. And also, at the same time, though, not giving them exclusive, because we have other partners, we have the other resource folks, and working together. We'll be kind of the conduit for that, but they're great, and I look forward to doing some more things with them here.
So he's still very interested in.
Yes, very much so. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions of Glennis? Anyone from the public? Glennis, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 7B, the proposed Engage bylaw amendments. Who wants to tackle this?
I can tackle it. There are a couple of proposed bylaws to the Engage, a couple amendments to the proposed Engage bylaws that are before you tonight, and the next meeting that this would be voted on at the Engage level would come before your next city council meeting. So we wanted to have them discussed here. Basically, they come down to a couple of things. One of them is, does the city want to give up their voting seat on the Engage board or not? That's the first one. As we've talked about in the past, if, in this case, Councilman Morgan continues to sit on the city council and on the Engage board, when it comes to any type of action in which this board would be voting to give money to Engage, Bob would have a conflict and would not be able to vote at the city council level. If you remove him from being a voting member of the Engage board and make him an ex-officio member, then he can vote at city council level. That's the first question to decide is, how do you want to handle that situation?
Thoughts? Rick?
I was the one that brought this up to begin with, and I just wanted Bob to be able to vote at the highest level. But I also want us to be on even with the county. So I guess I would withdraw. If the county is going to stay the way it is, I would withdraw my request, I think, because I think we need to be the same.
Do we know what the county's doing?
Yes. It's been indicated to me that they are going to maintain their voting status on the Engage board. Bob?
Yeah, I think that relationship is very important. And I know it's a concern of Gage County. So I guess I don't have any problem with that being removed. It's one vote here. But on the other side of the coin, I think the partnership that's been developed and the growth that has happened between the county and the city in this project is well worth staying in harmony.
I concur.
I think he said it correctly over there. We worked a long time trying to get this together with this. We have 8 people on this board. We should be able to afford one vote that's not here. If we have to have a person or two gone, then either postpone it or maybe the project isn't worth it in that case. So.
Okay.
Bob always has the discussion end of it. He can let us know what's going on.
Do we need to then pass a motion tonight to...
It'd probably be helpful to have a motion. That way there's just something on the record that shows how this body would like those issues to be handled at the upcoming meeting.
So the motion would say something to the effect that we would be in favor of maintaining our vote on the Engage board?
Right. We can discuss, if you want to, the other 2 amendments that are here, and then make one motion that encompasses kind of the feelings on all of them. The next item that's up on for proposed amendment is that currently all of the board of directors have to live inside the Gage County. The proposed amendment would allow 2 of those individuals to live outside of Gage County. As you see, they may then either work in the county or have economic development experience or have an interest in furthering economic development in the county, but it would allow 2 individuals to live outside of the county limits.
You're saying county limits, or, well, I think, let's use an example, J.C. Stiles, who runs a very large a company and employs 350 people today, lives in Lincoln. Does he have something to offer? Probably. It's just an example.
I don't think
The current bylaws, he could not sit on the board.
Is that correct, Tobias? Is that
That's not the way I read it.
Page
Yeah.
117 at the top talks about that 2 of the elected directors may be individuals who reside outside the Gage County.
okay? And that's still considered in part of the Article 4 amendment.
Correct.
Okay. Because okay.
You know,
And I'm not sure where the county's at on that one.
you know, can I chime in on that?
Yeah, sure, Ted.
I struggle with that a little bit, and I do understand the problem, and you make a good point, Stan. I guess if I was going to vote to support that, I would do that with the caveat that they only be voting members, that they couldn't hold office within their, they couldn't be the chairman of the board, or they couldn't be an officer of it, they could only be a voting member. That way you have at least the hierarchy or the power part of it that remains within the county. So that's where I would, to at least you limit some of it. But I don't like any of it, but I do understand the necessity for it.
I think I would prefer to go even further with it, not a voting member, but maybe being a non-voting member allowed to be out of the county. I mean, it's nice to have the experience and the extra expertise.
Like
I just don't think that, if you're not part of Gage County, then I think it's limited.
Well, Stan makes the point that he, because you run into this problem, if there, I guess because it does run into a problem. If you're, a manager of a manufacturing plant here, and you're simply the GM, but you live in Lincoln, should you have that right? But to sit on the board and vote. But if you live in Lincoln or Marysville or someplace, and you own this business here, and you have a financial stake, if you own the property, you own the structure, you're the owner of the business, and you simply, I think that they should have that right to sit on the board and vote. But I'm not making, it's their organization. I'm just saying that that's where I would fall out on it.
Okay. Rich?
Well, we don't want to take this down so far that we make it so complicated that nobody's
Sure.
going to understand it. You got your automatic directors. Those are 2. Say those guys couldn't be an automatic director. They'd have to be an elected director under this. But I don't want to take it so far that it gets so confusing that nobody's going to understand the thing.
Dwight?
I'll ask Bob hopefully. Are we having a hard time finding people to take these positions? Is that any part of the deal?
It can be a challenge.
Our pool is too small?
It can be a challenge when you're, the thing that you run into is the pool that that are doing a good job are also involved with a lot of other things. And so that does become a challenge. I think one of the safeguards that you do have is the city and the county representatives are on the nominating committee, plus 2 people who are not on the executive committee. So that's how the breakdown of the nominating committee. So you do have a little bit of safeguard there. The other safeguard that you have is the fact that the members themselves vote. And it could be that somebody's on there and you say, no, wait a minute, So the city's vote might be, no, we're not going to vote for the candidate. So you do have two safeguards there.
And just for clarification, the members today, there are 4 of them. It's Beatrice, it's Gage County, it is Cortland and Adams. Those are the only 4 members of the organization.
What do you guys want to do?
Mayor?
Yes, sir?
I'd like to see us just have discussion tonight, because I'd really like to make sure whatever we do blends and mixes right with the county brethren. Dwight made a good point. We worked a long time to piecing this all together, and I think what we need to do needs to mirror whatever the county does. I mean, I think that way it's that cohesiveness has to stay. So I think whatever we decide to do, you know, I'm hoping that it will blend and go with what the county would want to. So maybe if we can have.
Isn't the Engage meeting, however, next week?
I believe so. I believe
Tuesday
it's
the 14th.
14th.
So we really, time is not on our side here.
Okay.
Well, and that's why I have a question. If you look at how this is written, at least Article 4, at this point in time, Section A, both the city and the county are going to vote no. So does that, I mean, Article 4, is it already going to be voted no because of Section A? Because they have it written as the automatic director shall be ex officio, which we decided not to have.
I would anticipate that Engage's attorney would redraft Article 4, Section 2A prior to the meeting to match what your desires are and the county's desires. So what I'm anticipating. Greg, I know you've had contact with their attorney.
Yes, I've talked to Andy Carruthers, which is the attorney for Engage. And it should be my understanding. The problem is the resolution that you have before you here in the packet is the resolution for the Engage Board of Directors, not the Engage membership that will actually be considered by the membership. Because note, it's signed by the president of Engage and the secretary rather than someone that's dedicated member. And so I'm not entirely familiar, but I anticipate it will be the membership that votes against it. They'll take up, there's actually 3, you'll have a third element here in regards to, I believe, the nominating committee. But you'll take up each one of those 3 elements individually as the membership. So you'll rule on first the proposed amendment in regards to the voting members, which will likely be voted down. Then you'll take up a vote amongst the membership in regards to this item we're discussing right now, the 2 out-of-county potential elected directors. And then the last one we'll discuss here in a second is, I believe, the nominating committee. Is that correct?
Correct. The last one has to do with the nominating committee.
Mr. Catlin, in response to your comment, we do have a representative of the county here. And Eric, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you want to come up and address the group and kind of give your perspective on the county side?
Eric Tiemann, rural Beatrice. You know how this can change at any given moment, but I believe the general consensus is to maintain voting status, allow the outside of county members with the qualifications that are in Article B there, economic expertise, or potential for developing more business here in town. It spells it out real briefly in B. And then I didn't remember any other problems with
The last proposal's on the nominating committee. Today, they have to nominate 2 individuals for every open seat. The proposal is to get away from that and allow only 1 person to be nominated.
And kind of the thoughts we had there were, it is tough having that one person that you know you're putting up just because you have to have a second person. So none of us really saw a problem with getting away from that. That, like I say, that could change tomorrow, but I don't see any issues with it from our board side.
Any questions of Eric?
Not of Eric, no. I just had a question, though. If by chance we maybe chose to pick on 2 of these tonight, they can always make an amendment or make their votes at a different meeting, though, too. It's not like it has to be done yearly.
No,
So if
it-
we choose opt out of number one, let's just say we don't want to get involved in it tonight, they can make that change later on too, though, if need be.
That's correct.
But it would take a bylaws change.
Correct.
Right. And I'm still not too fond of having someone outside of Gage County just because they either work here or own here or are interested in it. It is Gage County, but
Can you clarify on the two elected directors, so they wouldn't have to work in Gage County and they wouldn't have to live in Gage County? They'd just have to have economic development experience or have an interest in further economic development? They don't have to live or work in?
Right. The way it reads is they who reside outside of Gage County and either work in the county, have economic development experience, or have an interest in furthering economic development in the county. One individual has, might be Keith Ellis. There's an individual who lives outside of Gage County with MPPD, but has economic development experience. If you were to add that individual to the board, he would qualify under those requirements, as an example.
That's right, yeah, because I think Cheryl Brandenburg sits on the Seward County Economic Development Board, and she's Black Hills Economic Developer. So there might be some of those cases, but I think the whole point of this was, if there are individuals that could commit the time and, really work hard for us here, they might be ideal. So I can say right now, though, the nomination committee, brought forth the slate, and if that doesn't pertain, in this case, this year at least, anyway, we don't have anybody outside the county on that as potential right now.
That does seem odd, but like Cheryl, she's on quite a few other committees, like Southeast Nebraska District Development. I mean, there's a lot of those groups that some of these people may sit on, boards that they may sit on, and it really gives a broad spectrum to what they see versus what we see at our local level. So that kind of seemed odd to me at first too. But I think that's really the idea behind getting that outside set of eyes.
Get the right one.
If you get the right one.
Yeah, that's the thing, you always have to be aware of where their loyalties lie, and that would be the biggest concern. Because as much as everyone wants everyone to succeed, you're still in competition with every other community.
Okay. Any other questions of Eric or Glennis? All right, let's move on. What are your thoughts, gentlemen? There are 3 different items that we could either approve or not approve tonight.
I think we're somewhat pretty much in agreement on all 3 to a degree. I think we can put them up, and I think we just put all 3 of them together and let's
I
vote.
think you need to separate them.
I do too.
If you want,
I think you're gonna
or
have-
however you want to do it. But
We can put them all together, we can do them separate.
Separate, please.
Separate.
separate.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion to approve the bylaw amendment for making the city council an ex officio member?
I'd make that
So
motion.
moved.
Is there a second?
That's a non-voting member.
I thought we talked about being
A voting member.
Voting member.
staying as a voting member, didn't we?
Yeah,
Stay.
but he's asking you to make the motion to have a voting member so you can vote against it. And that's because you.
We're doing
because
everything
this-
in the affirmative rather than
Okay.
offering the negative.
All right.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Claybaugh, to,
Have the city become an ex officio member. So if you want to keep your voting seat, you vote no.
all right. Any discussion, further discussion? Your vote, please. And that motion
Fails.
fails 7-0 with one abstention.
Because you
Bob
can't
Morgan,
vote.
because you can't vote. All right, so,
That's right, you can't vote on the voting.
just something wrong about that. All right, so now we will have a voting member. That is going to be our recommendation.
Correct.
Okay, everybody, next item.
So now you want to make a motion that would vote or to approve the allowance of 2 directors who reside outside the county, Gage County.
I make that motion. Second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to approve the two directors that live outside of, by party,
By party?
two directors that live outside of the county. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Discussion?
You know, I guess the only discussion is that you need to explain the vote, which way you're going, yes or no. But the other thing is I have the same concerns that Councilman Party has. And as Glennis pointed out, it's not really a problem this year for their upcoming slate. So if you want to continue that discussion, that it's probably safe to do so, because no matter which way you vote, it's not going to change their incoming officers. So if you want to keep that option open and vote against this, if you want to continue the discussion, you should vote against it. Is what I'm trying to say. Is that correct?
And if you're in favor of the
Correct.
members being outside, you vote yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes, a vote of yes will allow outside people, a vote of no does not.
Right, but it does give you the opportunity to still continue to discuss it at a later date.
Sure.
I would urge you to vote against it.
And I guess looking a little bit further on, I don't see where you have to be a resident of the state of Nebraska necessarily either. I mean, it doesn't go any further than that. It just says outside of Gage County, which could be anywhere.
Could be Marysville, Kansas.
That's wrong, is it? It could have someone from Belgium.
Maybe that's something that you can visit with Mr. Carruthers about.
All right, I'll bring it up to him.
Okay, good. All right, Mr. Catlin?
Well, that all goes back though, if you have the trust and faith in your director.
You do.
And your other board, that if they feel that Billy Bob from
Marysville.
come up, if he's qualified or she's qualified, meets their requirements, then hey, you put Billy Bob in.
Rich?
One of the main problems we had with the organization before this was we had the same stale people on the boards constantly, and we griped, and we griped, and we moaned for years on this. I agree with Dwight, but then I don't agree with him. We need to have as big a pool, as many minds, as many eyes on this thing as we can get. Now, I'm just going back to what we had years ago, and Ted, you know, you and I both sat there and griped for years.
It's uncomfortable.
And I think we need to.
I just think that I'm voting against it simply because I think it needs to have more thought and more discussion. I think that the parameters need to be discussed, and it needs to have a narrower scope than just. I mean, Dwight pointed out, that one of the obvious things there is they don't have to live in the United States. I mean, that's not even listed. I understand that you trust the board, and I think they actually are going in the right direction. But I think it needs to have more discussion than what we've given it tonight. That's why I'm voting against it.
And I hear what you're saying, Ted, but I really think that John Q. Public that sits on that board doesn't have the economic development experience that a Keith Ellis does with NPPD.
Please get Keith to come on our board.
And the other one is Cheryl Brandenburg with Black Hills Energy. Both of these people have been in this business a long, long time. I'm not promoting it one way or the other. I just think we need to look outside of the box just a little bit. And if these folks have that experience, I think we have to utilize that experience.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, Stan. I'm just saying that I think it's something that's important in it, and we should give it more thought and consideration.
Okay, let's.
Here we are.
Let's have a vote. We've got a motion on the table.
So yes, let you live outside the county. No says you can't.
And that is approved 4-3.
You may vote.
Then I'm going to vote yes.
So pass. 5-3-1 with Fairbanks, Party, and Billsbach voting no.
I think it's a benefit to our community to have some of these outside individuals be a part of our economic development plan.
Don't disagree with you.
Okay.
So now we need a motion to approve the amendment to the bylaws stating that the nominating committee is no longer required to present 2 individuals for each open board seat.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, who said it so eloquently, and seconded by Mr. Cook to do what he said.
Repeat that, though.
I didn't catch it. I'm sorry.
I think that's a housekeeping.
This is the loosest
I
we've
think
ever
that's,
been.
I would like you
You
to
read
repeat
that.
that because I didn't catch what you said.
I think that's a housekeeping
Read about it
measure.
tomorrow. Can you turn the TV off?
Repeat what you said so they know what they're
This would
voting
be
on.
a motion to approve the amendment to the bylaws that the nominating committee is no longer required to present a slate of 2 individuals for each open board seat.
Yeah, I think that's a housekeeping measure, and it's a simple vote.
I think when we were trying to, when we were putting this all together, we hashed and hashed and hashed to make it, try to make it as right, as correct as we could. So,
Bob?
You know, and I think the discussion, just so you guys know, was that it probably was needed 3 years ago. And the progress that Engage has made and the progress of the relationship between Gage County and the city have improved to the point where we're at a good point. And I think, you know, that just needs to be noted that that progress is made.
Well, I agree. I think there's been a great deal of progress made, and I think as you enter into their strategic plan here, as you get private dollars in more and more, I think that there's going to be a bigger separation between this body and the county board and them, and I think all of that's positive. So,
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. And your vote, please. That is approved. 7 yes votes, 1 abstention. Okay, next item on the agenda, we have several funding requests. And the first funding request is the Beatrice Baseball Association. Am I saying that right?
Beatrice Bullets.
Beatrice Bullets. Is there anybody here representing the Beatrice Bullets?
Does not look.
Does not appear so.
You want to make the motion and we'll discuss it?
Mayor, I'd make a motion that the funding request for $1,000 from the Beatrice Bullets Baseball Incorporated be approved.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that we approve the request from the Beatrice Bullets. Discussion?
What the Bullets are asking for is they're looking to put some fencing along the first base and third base foul lines, if you will. There'll be some warm-up areas is what it'll provide. You'll note that the total amount is $4,000, asked for 25%, so $1,000. Since it is an item when they're done, the city of Beatrice will own it. There is enough funding left in this line item to fulfill all of these requirements tonight.
Dwight?
Kind of late in the season though, but do they charge to go to the baseball game?
No,
They're free if you go to a Bullets game. They don't charge you $1 or $2?
no.
Do their members pay to join the Bullets?
The only thing I think that, my son's involved in Bullets, and the only thing that I think we paid for are uniforms and
No membership fee? I just wanted to make sure because I know it's late.
there is a fee, and most of that goes towards, entrance into tournaments and those types of things, but
Is it somewhere around $400 for each kid? Something like that?
something like that.
it's not a pay-to-play.
No, it's not a pay-to-play.
I think that's what Dwight was asking.
If you didn't pay the $400, your kid could still play?
No, I mean,
No.
So it is, okay.
You want to sponsor a couple of them?
No, just one of our rules in here, one of our rules in here says it has to be free to the public and to the players.
I've never been charged to go down and sit there and watch a game, so you're welcome. He has a doubleheader on Saturday afternoon.
I'll try that and see.
We'll be out there from about
We're not,
1
we're
to...
not,
Okay, we've got a,
I just also note that that's funding for an event. If we're funding an event, the event has to be open to the public. We're not funding the event, we're funding the bullpens, which will be used by more than just the Bullets, and we own them. So that's the clarification there.
okay. I have a motion on the floor to approve the request from the Beatrice Bullets. Your vote, please. That is approved, 8-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a request from Main Street Beatrice.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that the request for $350 from Main Street Beatrice be approved.
There- It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that we approve the request for Main Street Beatrice in the amount of $350. Any discussion? Michael Sothen with Main Street. Hi, Mike.
This request that you have here in front of you is for the planters and bump outs. It's a project that we do pretty much every spring. There's 36 of the planters, and there are still a couple of the bump outs. We did lose a couple of those with the Fifth Street project, but that's what you see here in front of you.
Questions of Michael? Anyone?
We buy the plants here in town?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody from the public? Thank you, Michael. And your vote, please. That is approved. 7 affirmative, 1 abstention from Claybaugh. Next item on the agenda is a request from Gage County Relay for Life.
Mayor, I make a motion that the request of $500 for the Gage County Relay for Life be approved.
Is there a second? Second. And moved by Catlin, seconded by Morgan, that the $500 request from Gage County Relay for Life be approved. Any discussion from anyone in the audience? Come on up, and if you would give your name and address for the record, we'd appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. My name is Lori Sturwalt. My address is 1510 South 8th. I am the survivor and the mission lead person with the Gage County Relay for Life for 2015.
And I'm Brian Sadoff, 2525L, Beatrice. I've been hanging around here about 57 years now. So.
Any question? Did you have a presentation? I'm sorry.
Basically, what we are asking for is the $500 to help cover the expenses so that we can apply more money towards the American Cancer Society Gage County Relay for Life. It is a wonderful thing that we do here in the community. This is our 18th year supporting the Relay for Life, and it is just something that we feel very positive about, and the community itself is very much involved.
Anybody have any questions?
I feel bad for this one.
Okay.
Where is this relay located at?
The fairgrounds.
Outside the city limits?
Technically, yes.
Do we have a rule that says nothing outside
No,
the city limits?
No, that was removed.
That's where the event is. I'm the worst one here probably, so yeah.
No, we made an amendment to that funding policy, I believe about a year ago, and removed that requirement.
Still said that. Still says that in the line number 2. Spectating portion of the event occurs outside the city limits.
We'll have to correct the application.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good catch.
Hey, what do you got, Mr. Party, against?
Okay,
softball
anything
teams,
else?
baseball teams? Now you go to.
Any other discussion?
Okay.
All right, your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Thank you very much for coming.
On all the rules, Petey. Who's next? All right.
And we have a request from the Beatrice Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $5,000 for Homestead Days 2015.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that the request of $5,000 from the Beatrice Area Chamber of Commerce be approved.
Second.
Been moved, and who seconded it? Kerr.
Mayor Phil.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr, that we approve the $5,000 to the Beatrice Chamber of Commerce. Ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
Angie Bruna, Director of Tourism and Special Events with the Chamber.
Laura Young, Chamber.
Respectfully, we're requesting the $5,000 to help cover expenses that we incur with Homestead Days, including advertising, event insurance, some porta potties throughout the event, as well as a Pavelka Variety Combo Band. We're always looking for ways to expand what we do with our event and always attract more people. We're fortunate with Homestead Days. Our hotels are plumb full whenever people are calling. When it gets close to that week, we actually have to look into other communities outside of Beatrice and Gage County to try and send people to. So, what's that?
Polka band.
A polka band, variety combos, not just polka. But the polka band would be on Thursday evening on 5th Street as part of the event. It's a third Thursday event that's going to take place during Homestead Days. We'll have, we're partnering with the Beatrice Speedway Hall of Fame to do some activities there, including having race drivers to sign autographs. With the polka band, we'll have scavenger hunts and a lot of different activities for the polka band.
Fat men don't polka.
You can come and tap your toes.
That would be something.
Any questions of Angie or Laura? Anybody? Anyone from the audience? All right, thank you very much. And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. All right, next item on the agenda is some discussion regarding the demolition of 407 Court Street. Who wants to, Tobias?
I can start with this one.
All right.
As everybody's well aware, 407 Court Street is a building located downtown wherein part or all of the building has collapsed and is in need of demolition and removal. The city went out, sent out a request for proposals. We mailed those out to 21 different contractors, some that we knew, some that Main Street provided to us, some that our structural engineer had worked with in the past. Out of all of those and through our website and advertising efforts, we received back a bid from Team Construction that's in your packet before you. And some of the questions that we have, and I'm sure you have, has to do with the cost, has to do with the work that is to be done, what's the time frame to do that work. And so we're here to answer those questions. We don't envision really any action tonight other than maybe a discussion as to what to do with the facade of the building. What we foresee is that at the next council meeting, bringing back an agreement between Team Construction, adjoining property owners, and the city as to who is doing what, who's responsible for what, and everybody's well aware of where this project is moving forward.
Okay, we have R.L. Tiemann, we have Eric Tiemann, and James Burrows, the city engineer. James, you want to? Who wants to start?
I'll let Tiemann's go explain, I guess, their bidding process and what they're thinking on schedule and things of that nature.
Okay.
I guess on this project, we looked through the drawings. They were a little different than what we're used to. A lot of different companies looked at this project, and there's a fair amount of uniqueness here. You've got we've got three structures that are needing some support. One has collapsed vertically currently. That's the one we're looking at demolishing. The problems have stayed within that building for now, but the structures immediately adjacent on each side need to be shored up, supported prior to demolition of that building. The city hired King Little to do structural analysis and prepare a report. That's where we got the bid documents. I guess if this is awarded, the first step would be a discussion. Tobias and I talked, everyone would sit down, probably some council representatives, owners, contractor. We'd all talk about what actually is or is not included in this project. After that, we would order our steel, or prior to that even. There's even some question as far as the way the walls will be supported. There's a couple options. One is an epoxied embed, which will be sandwiched against a plate with a nut. Basically, you'll drill a hole from the inside, anchor something with a chemical epoxy, and pull against that. The other way is a full all thread, where you drill all the way through the wall, anchor 8.5 or 8 by 11 by 3/8 inch plates onto 3/4 inch rods with nuts and washers. Come to the inside and put timbers inside, and the timbers vary in size depending on where you're at in the building. None of that is extremely easy. Inside the ceilings, the ceiling you see, or like say this drop ceiling, that's about what those are, only they are a stuccoed ceiling below the rafters. So it'll entail getting up above that layer to get to the actual envelope level. All this is going to be pretty time consuming. There's a fair amount of risk involved, but like I said, right now the structure has fallen vertically. Maybe it will again. Maybe the next time something falls, it could come down and out. We really don't know. Everything is based off of the structural engineer's report, so I guess some care and thought going into this. The reason I say it may be all threaded or epoxy anchored, visually in the front of some of these buildings, they have historical facades out front. You know, you see that from the street. They may opt to increase the number of anchors and go with an epoxy anchor instead of an all thread, so that there's not, the plates are about 8.5 by 11, 8 by 11. You'd have a row, say on the Black Crow, you'd have a row at roof level and a row at second floor level. If you could go to the epoxy anchors, you do require more, but you wouldn't have the anchors showing on the outside of the building. So there are some discussion items prior to the construction.
Those are to the two buildings that are
The two adjacent buildings.
And the thread would be an old dead man type deal is what you're talking about?
Basically, I believe on the first floor, and it's in the drawings there, I should have brought a set of drawings, but I think it's something like every 8'3", there would be one of those all thread sandwich anchors on the first level, and then on the north and south, I believe those were at 5'6", or under the 6 foot mark for spacing. But don't quote me on those measurements.
Are you the inside bolts? And I know I'm jumping here, but is this on the inside of the Black Crow and on the inside of the adjacent building, or are you leaving the walls that are there?
They're not common walls, so the building that's being torn down, those walls will be removed completely. Aside from the one wall, I believe, in the stairwell is actually a shared wall. But the Black Crow will have these anchors through it at 2 levels, and the limestone building to the east will actually have those going through those walls as well.
The old bank building? I mean, is that which one? I don't know which one to call it. The Crow's easy to say. But.
Sure, yeah, and then the one to the east also, they would stay in those walls. The walls of the building that are being demolished won't have those anchors. Those will actually come down, and once all the anchoring is done, in the bid proposal, I wrote that we'd have King Little come and inspect those prior to any demolition, because that's all contingent upon those being correct. Once those are approved, then demolition would begin. We'd try to take the building down very, very gingerly and remove all the debris, fill the basement, and then James, I believe, spec'd out some concrete slabs connected to those 2 buildings with a curb next to them, just to shed the water away, so we keep some water away from that basement. But we also talked, if we know what the final purpose of this will be, if it's going to be repurposed for an outdoor eating facility, something like that, that could be changed. It wouldn't have to be the slabs as drawn, I'm sure. They could be changed to work with whatever's going to be there, so we're not pouring something just to tear it out and put it back right away again.
I guess I would just like to note that the city took a very simplistic approach to this, meaning we didn't want to go over the top on this. We wanted to put out there for bid, what is the minor amount of structural impact that we can do to the adjacent buildings. Now, with that being said, of course, not everybody would like to see big bolts and plates on the outside of their building. And some of the owners of the adjacent buildings have already voiced their opinion on that. And that's where we're coming up with this idea of maybe installing more adhesion type anchors versus all the way through the wall. So there are some concessions that can be made to maybe appease those building owners to make it look more pleasing to them during the construction process. But at the same time, we've also informed them that this is what our structural engineers told us to do to support that building. If they don't like that, they can also get another opinion from another structural engineer and maybe come up with something different. But we try to keep it as simple as we can in terms of the amount of cost the city of Beatrice is going to have to incur to have this demolition take place.
So King Little is going to be the structural engineer on this project?
He is the structural engineer that did the plans on the project.
Is he signing on and remaining as the responsible structural engineer on the project? If something collapses, is he taking responsibility?
His plans, currently with the city of Beatrice, we don't have an ongoing contract with him to cover that. Now, I don't know if he's planning on doing that for an additional fee for Tiemann's. I don't know, because our intention is, we don't own this building. We're handing this over, and the contractor's ultimately responsible. Whatever happens to those adjacent buildings and whatever happens during that construction process, that will not be the city of Beatrice's responsibility.
Eric just briefly touched on that. In the price that we gave with that demolition included our paying for the structural engineer to come down and inspect all the work that we had done to the buildings prior to the demolition of the building in between. That's in So both that's of our our- best interests. That protects us, and, you know, it makes sure that King Little has a stamp drawing, but that doesn't mean anything if things aren't to his specification. So that just reassures that things were done the way he wanted.
But Eric, you're saying that it's prior to the demolition. I'm concerned about that, but I'm also concerned about during the demolition and at the completion of the demolition. I mean, is he owning this from beginning to end?
What he would own would be
He would own the plans that his stamp is covering.
the plans and the support of the buildings. That was something we talked about a lot too. We talked to King Little multiple times just about process on this, because although he's saying this will take care of this, there's still that gray area. This isn't, just because he stamped these does not guarantee that we aren't going to have a pile of brick there.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee. No one can promise you that. And that's why people were very apprehensive to
Did it?
to work on this. It's not an open and shut job. I told Tobias there were easier ways to clear large areas very quickly on this job, but his drawing is saying this is what his best assessment is that will support those buildings and keep them standing. Any questions we would have along the way, we'd have to consult with him, and we would plan on doing that. Like I say, it's in our best interest as well to make sure that each piece goes along as he intended.
Rich?
Eric, that I'm not familiar. The old dead man with the screw I'm familiar with, but the epoxy. Now, the old dead man's, if the building started leaning, you could tighten them up a little bit and push it or keep it from leaning. Does that epoxy work on the same way? Do you have does the epoxy allow you to tighten it up?
This isn't exactly the same. You're talking more of a diagonal type loading on these. We're not getting that bracing there. The way I understand his drawings, and I'm not a structural engineer, but these are giving you lateral support, keeping the building pulled in.
Yeah.
Now, there'll be a 3/4 inch all thread with an approximately a 10-inch hole. You know, a little bit bigger than that, but 10 inches deep. So you'll have that piece of all thread or that threaded steel in that. So you will be able to tighten down on that if it starts moving. But your diagonal loading, the way I'm reading his plans, he's counting on the front and the rear of the building or any perpendicular walls to give you that strength this way. But if they would come loose, say facade crumbling underneath, that all thread epoxied in should become a fixture that's a permanent mount to the masonry. What the instructional engineer is really worried about on this project, with the absence of 407 Court Street, the adjoining buildings are going to face a wind load, which they haven't ever had. Yes. And without taking care of that, there could be a catastrophic injury to the wall there. And it's not just a dead man. These are anchored into angle irons. The angle irons then anchored into timbers, which are anchored into the wood assembly system. This building is pretty indicative of downtown Beatrice. You have a wood floor system, a wood ceiling, and a wood roof system that's supported by a masonry structure. And taking the timbers and mounting them to the wood structure as well as the brick is how it's going to tie that together. And that's going to take the wind load and place it from any individual point and spread it throughout the building until it gets down to the footings. That's the engineering standpoint of this.
The reason I ask that is down the line, will we have any kind of contract or an agreement or understanding with the businesses to the north, to the west, to the east, that once this is done, we're done, there's no liability if their building starts falling down in 2 or
Tobias
3 years?
and Greg are going to put together an agreement that everybody understands what's in that agreement and they sign off on it.
Sign off on it to protect us, okay. I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to find out.
And these braces aren't the cure-all for these
Oh, no.
buildings. I mean, there's other issues that could arise. The building to the east has a fairly new truss assembly and roof. You could walk through either of those. I mean, they're old buildings, so this is basically a stabilization of those in King's best assessment.
How much disruption are you gonna have to, well, the building to the east, I believe, is empty, but the Black Crow, how much disruption are you gonna have with their businesses?
We've
with
talked
their
to
business?
we've talked to the owners of the restaurant several times, and we worked with most of the restaurants in Beatrice in one way or another, and quite a number of businesses, and we're pretty cognizant of the fact that we have to work around their schedule. We can't be making a lot of noise and dust and dirt when it's a prime time for their customers to come in. So we're going to make a point of working with them at the appropriate times.
We're also trying to make some possible changes where we're accessing these bolts can be all done off the second floor versus maybe doing it off the first floor. That's some changes that we're also investigating and seeing if we can do that so that we're not physically down there on the first level of the restaurant. But that's some things we're working with the adjacent building owners to see how they want us to do that.
And the owners have also been good. There's existing damage there already to some of the ceilings, floors. They've been pretty realistic with us so that we were pretty straightforward. This is what you could have. What would you like to see? And they were willing to work with us as far as not replastering a plaster that's falling down, not redoing the whole ceiling, just patching in, band-aiding what's there, making it so it'll pass existing code, but not bringing it to, I guess, a usable level if it wasn't a usable level to start with.
Ted?
So Eric, you're confident that your bid is your cost?
No, it better not be. I hope there's some room for profit in there.
I'm sorry. You're confident that you'll remain at your bid or under?
I'm sorry, one more.
You're confident that you'll remain at your bid or under?
Yes, and I mean, that's the way this one is. This one's approached a little bit differently than ones we've talked about before. This isn't a unit price bid where on a unit price bid, we have X number of square feet, X number of lineal feet, and if it goes up, that goes up. If it goes down, that goes down. This is a little different circumstance where a lump sum bid works better, and this is a lump sum. This is our dollar amount. In the meeting we have prior to with the owners, with the council, probably with James, the meeting where we sit down and say, this is what is going to be included, this is what's not going to be included. That any changes really need to be made then, or anything the city does not want to include. I've talked to Tobias about some potential things, and it's in, I think you probably each have a copy of our bid. I spelled that out too, some potential hazards we saw with adjoining buildings, some likely issues that could come up so that those aren't a surprise, and those will all be things to talk about prior to a contract, such as the biggest one I see, Ted, is the stucco or the facade of the Black Crow. I think it's realistic that we can think that that's probably going to come off. That's something for you all to decide. Is that our responsibility? Is that not our responsibility? But still be upfront with the building owners that this could happen. It's likely. That may be a good time for them to patch things, but we're not in the decision-making chairs here. That's your role to say, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. But yeah, as far as taking the building down, going through the supports that King Little has, as bid, that's our price for what's there.
Just a minute, Ted. The preservation of the sod, or the facade, that's an add-on.
I'm sorry. I was speaking of the actual.
I know you
stucco
were,
on the buildings.
but my next question, a follow-up question is then, if you were going to maintain the facade, then that's another add-on bid of about 50-some thousand.
And that's spelled out in there also.
We did. The two options that we had was for keeping 2 stories of facade, which would be the entire facade. The city asked for a second option, which would be just 1 story. That's why there's 2 prices on the option.
Okay.
And that would be at the city's discretion, of course, also. We talked to King Little, the same structural engineer.
And would that lend additional support to those other 2 buildings?
No.
Will not.
Because you wouldn't attach it? Is that what you're saying, or?
You wouldn't gain anything from it because facade, you're in a parallel wall. The wall's parallel or in conjunction with the other 2 walls. The support that would have to go on the facade would be, your wind load to the north and south.
Sure.
So the wind load on your other 2 adjoining buildings, keeping that facade's not going to make any difference on it.
Okay.
Eric, from the time that you first put your foot inside that building to start working, how long do you think it'll take? 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months?
No, I'd say in between that, just the putting all the anchors. Basically, before we can do anything else, first step is we order all of our pieces. So we'll have to be ordering in timbers. There's some large timbers here. I think there's some 6x12s, and these are big pieces of wood. All of our steel plates, our bolts, our angle irons will all be fabricated. They'll basically cut pieces to spec, punch them. I think we're in, hopefully they talked about a week lead time. I would say, to be safe, a week and a half just to get our pieces. Before we get those, we could start laying out where we're going to be drilling holes. I would anticipate, if things go really well, a couple weeks.
The reason I was asking that is because once you start putting holes in other buildings that we're not sure how sturdy they are, do we have a way of in checking those buildings out from top to bottom to make sure we're not causing more damage inside without looking at them again?
You're gonna have to monitor them as you go regardless. We even state that in the specs about the foundations, that the contractor's responsible, and they go to tear this down, to be watching the foundations of the existing buildings. If they notice any movement at that time, they need to stop their operation, and then we need to reassess at that point.
Just want to make sure we're going to also provide so we don't have to pay for it twice over again.
But start to finish on this, if things go very well, probably somewhere in that month range, from complete start to we walk away. I would say if things go well in that 30-day range. If things don't go well, it'll slow things down, being if we have unforeseen problems. But I think we've addressed everything fairly well. I think the city's engineer went through and looked at everything pretty well. These are projects where there just isn't a definite. If it was new, it'd be easy. If it was standing alone, it would be really easy.
It's like working on an old house. You're always going to find something.
Yeah.
My concern wasn't how long it's going to take. My concern was halfway through you're doing a major project and the restaurant next door is full of people and all of a sudden something gives. We're not aware of what's happening. That's why I want to make sure we're doing
the
that.
stabilization all occurs before any demolition, so that's the way, that's the direction it goes. We won't remove anything until all the mechanical fasteners are in place, all the stabilization mechanisms are in place, and I guess there's going to be a large insurance policy on this. There's no way around it. That's broken out in the specs as well, which is unnecessary. There's just no guarantee on this.
Yep. Rich, you had something?
James, something you said just hit me that you said earlier. We don't own this building?
No.
50 or 200.
Did he sign it over to us or anything that, then once we get all this done, we have?
Condemned.
Huh?
We've condemned it.
But what I'm saying is when we're all done, we get over this, do we have the right to sell that property, to recoup some of our money, or?
We will have the right to go after him for our cost in it. I believe Mr. Butcher's also been working on securing the back taxes on the property as well, so we'll have that opportunity to foreclose on him that way. if we need to, but
So we'll get her his Walmart check, more or less.
that's always is a possibility of getting a judgment against him and going for garnishing wages. That's always a possibility.
So then the property just sets, he still owns it, we've taken this
No,
all
we
down,
would-
it'll just set,
As part of the collection of the cost in this, we will foreclose on that or the back taxes is, because we're gonna get an assignment of the back taxes, the tax sale certificates. And so we can foreclose at that point on the property, on the tax sale certificates and take it, or we can pursue it through other means.
Now, can anybody step in on those back taxes foreclosures, and
No,
do we have to outbid them, or do
the
we have
first
first?
person in line on that, we've contacted them, we've negotiated a deal on that. They're gonna assign those taxes over to us. We're the first ones in line. We'll foreclose on them. And then, unless we're paid what is assigned over, then we would be able to be the first in line to get paid on a purchase of it. It'd go up for tax sale.
So our hands go in first, and we have right of
Yes.
first refusal, or more or less.
Along those lines, yes.
Yeah, along those lines, okay.
Any other questions of these gentlemen? I think we've kind of got an idea of what the concept is, what the scope of work is. But I know that Tobias and Greg are going to work on an agreement before we actually do anything that everybody signs off on, so that we are certainly aware of what the parameters are that we're working with before we approve this.
It seems like when this bid came out, and I heard a lot of people go,
Doesn't seem so high, does it?
Doesn't surprise me at all. As a matter of fact, I thought it was a very reasonable bid, but,
Just wish we didn't have to pay it.
yeah, just wish we didn't have to pay it, but it's gotta be done, and soon.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Where are we at with this, Stan? Where are we going? And
Well, I think.
what's our timeline?
Well, couldn't we at the next city council meeting make a decision on what we're going to do?
That's certainly our vision is we plan on bringing back an agreement, if you will, hopefully at the next council meeting. It depends on how quickly we can get these two gentlemen at the table and as long as the additional property owners. If we can coordinate everybody together, get that agreement written out so everybody's very clear on what your responsibility is, what our responsibility is. As soon as we have that agreement done and signed, we'll bring it to you and they can get started.
Okay.
Do you think Blackbrook can operate during this time?
Not while they're taking it down.
We talked about that. There's days they're closed, there's times when they're not working, there's potential to work on an upper level.
Sundays and Mondays?
There's gonna be some odd hours on this.
It's to their benefit to have it done. They're gonna work with you.
They've been very straightforward with us, it seems like, and I think they are gonna work with us really well.
They don't have,
It'd be really
you're a
tough.
better option than what the other option is.
Yeah, let nature take its course. Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the legislative update.
What I can tell you as far as the legislature goes, really in the last 2 weeks, there's been no movement on any of the bills that we're watching. They're busy doing other things. So unless you have some questions in particular, really there is no update at this point.
On Wisconsin.
Okay. Next regular council meeting is April 20th, and our work session will be on April 27th. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Tomorrow night.
Second, Clayball.
There.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Claybaugh, that we adjourn at
13 p.m.
9:13 p.m. Your vote, please. That is approved, 8-0. What did you say?
For a reminder about tomorrow night.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Tomorrow night is the
What does that mean?
the branding unveiling, and that's at 7 o'clock at Classics.